Sure. My name is Timothy, Timothy, Patrick, Patrick, Gannon, Gannon.
All right, a couple things to keep in mind when you're testifying. The court reporter is taking down everything, so you have to answer with a yes or a no instead of shaking your head or saying uh-huh or uh-uh. If you don't understand a question, please ask for clarification. If an objection is made, stop talking immediately. Don't answer unless I tell you to. And please don't talk over each other. Wait until the question's finished before you answer. Okay?
Thank you.
Counsel?
We know your name is Timothy Gannon, correct?
Yes.
How old are you, Mr. Gannon?
I am 53.
And I'm going to trace your history. Where did you go to school, high school?
High school, I went to Fridley High School.
And after Fridley, where did you go to school?
I did.
Where did you go to?
I initially enrolled in North Hennepin Community College in Brooklyn Park.
And how long were you there?
I was there about 3 years.
And what did you major in at the school?
Originally, my major was criminal justice or law enforcement.
And after 3 years, what did you do, if anything?
Well, within that 3 years, I had a break. So after my first year of college, I figured I was a 2-year track, so I could become a police officer, but I was nowhere mature enough or able to become a police officer. So I thought I would do something different. So I did enlist in the Marine Corps. And in between my college, I was a Marine Corps military policeman.
And I suspect that was a little different than going to college?
It was a lot different, yes.
So how long were you in the military, in the Marine Corps? The first time?
My original duty time was just during training, so the boot camp and also the MP school, and then I served out the rest of my time. It was supposed to be the rest of my time in reserve duty back here in Minnesota.
And did you get called back to duty, though? Active duty?
In 1990 and 91, I was called to active duty for the Gulf War, the first Gulf War.
And did you see combat in that war?
I did.
And how long were you there again? I'm sorry.
We were activated for approximately 6 months of duty.
Did you then return home?
I did.
And did you start school again?
Yes, I had then transferred down to Mankato State University, and I was in the direction of getting my 4-year college degree, again in law enforcement and criminal justice.
And how long did it take you down at Mankato to get your degree?
It took me a little bit longer because of those interruptions and also because of the active duty. So I graduated in 1993.
After you graduated in 1993, I take it you went and looked for a job?
I did.
And was that in police enforcement, law enforcement?
Yes, I chose to be in law enforcement, correct.
And that was your major?
It was.
Did you, after applying for jobs, did you get a job at the Brooklyn Center Police Department?
I did in 1994.
And was Kimberly Potter there already, or was that after you came?
She came after I was already there, so I believe in 1995.
All right. And so once she arrived there, you met her and worked with her on occasion?
I did.
Was she on the same shift with you once she started there?
No, we had basically gone to different shifts. I would see her in some of the shift work that we would do, but we were not on the same rotation or shifts.
Okay. Let's talk about your career there for a while. After you started there, you were a patrol officer, correct?
Correct.
And tell the jury about your rise up to the top.
Sure. I think my career track was similar to a lot of officers when they first start. I wanted to be exposed to everything. I wanted to be a trainer. I wanted to be a firearms instructor, a use of force instructor, a field training officer. And of course, as most people want to do, they want to be on a SWAT team. I was on the emergency operations team. So I basically soaked in everything that I could early on in my career in Brooklyn Center, and I was given the opportunity to do so.
All right. And you have to slow down a little bit because the court reporter's looking at me in a strange way. Okay. So how about your promotions at the Brooklyn Center Police Department? Why don't you tell the jury about those?
Sure. So my rise within the Brooklyn Center Police Department, the rank structure is you can become a sergeant or a detective, and then above that rank you can become, at that time, a lieutenant, which later would be called a commander. So my rise basically through the ranks was in about 2004, I was promoted to a sergeant position. And I was a sergeant for a very, very short period of time, about a year, a little bit over a year. And then a commander position or lieutenant position became available. And I tested for that, applied for that, and I was able to get that position. And I was a commander for quite a long time within the police department.
And when you say you tested for it, it was a written test, is that right?
No, it was an application process, and you had to have prerequisites such as a 4-year degree.
All right. So now you're a commander. And what year was that?
2005.
As a commander, I believe we heard in this case that there's 3 commanders and 1 chief, and the commanders answer to the chief. Is that right?
Yes,
And below the commanders are the sergeants. Is that?
correct.
So what division were you a commander in?
Sure. So within the police department, there's 3 different divisions. There's the investigative division, the patrol division, and also the community engagement or community services, which is the kind of the outreach department within the agency. I was able to rotate through all those positions. In each position, I was there for 2 to 3 years. I did serve a little bit longer as a patrol commander, and I went through that rotation twice.
And Kimberly Potter was in the patrol division. Is that right?
Yes.
And how long were you the commander in the patrol division?
Sure. I think my first tenure within the patrol was a lengthy time. It was either 5 to 6 years, and then when I rotated through, it was shorter. But it was the first one was 5 to 6 years. The second one was probably 2 to 3 years. So a total of 8 years as a commander.
And Kimberly Potter worked under you during that time? She was a patrol officer?
Correct.
And what kind of a police officer was she, based on how she worked with you?
She was a fine officer. She
Okay, the objection is overruled, but the state's objection is noted.
Go ahead. I believe you were interrupted when you said she was a fine officer.
She was a fine officer, and there's certain things within the department that you get known for. Are you handling your calls? Are you professional when you talk with people? Are you doing good police reports? She was known for doing all those things.
What about her volunteer work? Are you familiar with that?
I am familiar with that. Early on in her career, she did volunteer and began working for LIMA.
What's that?
LIMA is a Law Enforcement Memorial Association.
Slow down just a little bit.
Sure. It's a law enforcement memorial association, and basically what they do is they lend support to fallen officers and their families. They are at funerals. They also very extensively help the families go through this process, which can be very traumatic and tragic.
And that would be law enforcement that was killed on duty, correct?
In the line of duty, yes.
In the line of duty. Was she also on a DART committee?
Sure. DART is our domestic abuse response team. So one of the initiatives that I had brought forward with the help of my command staff was a follow-up for we'd have domestic abuse survivors, and a lot of times they wouldn't get all the resources they need at the original time of call. And what the DART team would do is they'd follow up afterwards, even the next day, to make sure that that survivor has all the benefits that they need, that they're talking to an advocate, that if they have any questions about the upcoming trial, they supply them with that. So a select group of officers would do that.
And she was one of them?
She was one of the original members.
Also, was she an FTO when you worked there?
She was a field training officer for a long time. One of the things related to that is we don't get very many senior officers to do the field training officer program because they're basically they've had a lot. They've done a lot over their careers, and they leave that up to other officers. We have a few senior officers that still do that, and she was one of them.
And did you continue to be the chief of Brooklyn Center Police Department up until April of this year?
I was promoted to the chief position in September of 2015, and I served in that position until April of this year.
Yeah, and what happened in April of this year?
Officer Potter, or Kim Potter, was involved in the shooting incident, and the aftermath of that related to the political pressures within the city. I was no longer allowed to stay as the chief of police.
And was that because you would not terminate her until she had a due process hearing?
Objection made.
The objection is overruled on that ground. You may answer.
I believe one of the reasons that I was required or requested to leave the agency was because I would not immediately fire Kim Potter.
Did Kim Potter leave voluntarily after that? Quit her job?
She did resign her position to me while I was still the chief.
Okay. Let's go to April 11th of this year. You were still chief at that time?
I was.
And that was the day that a critical incident happened, is that correct?
Correct.
You weren't at the critical incident at any time, were you?
I was off duty at the time.
And however, you did look at BWC body-worn cameras afterwards, is that correct?
I did.
The objection is overruled.
I'm trying to lead you into that, sir. Did you observe body-worn cameras after the incident?
Yes, I did.
And what body-worn cameras, if any, did you observe?
So on the night of the incident, I had been called in, and I was at the police station, triaging the situation, working through the incident. I was advised by a BCA agent to take a look at the body-worn camera footage from Kim Potter's camera, and that's what I did.
Later on, at some time later, did you look at more body-worn camera?
I looked at one other camera angle much later, and that was the squad cameras. So within the police department, our officers carry it and have on their person a body-worn camera, but also early on in the process, we had mounted squad cameras that can watch and can monitor outside of the car directly.
So you're able to see inside the car before the stop, is that right?
Yes.
And you saw the stop, and you saw the arrest, and you saw the aftermath, correct?
I did.
And after viewing all of those incidents and the body-worn cameras, did you see anything based on your knowledge and experience that her conduct was consistent with her training at the Brooklyn Center Police Department?
When I viewed both camera angles and had all the data in front of me, I saw no violation.
No violation of what?
Of policy, procedure, or law.
And the policy and procedure at Brooklyn Center Police Department, to your knowledge, since you're the chief, followed the law of use of force, is that right?
Yes, it does.
Now, in a critical incident, there are shooting, sometimes violence, chaos. In your experience, going back your years of being a law enforcement officer, had you in the past, before April 11th, been involved in critical incidents?
Yes, I have.
Was there one that stands up in your mind as memorable?
Yes.
Was that a critical incident where you were almost dragged in a car, or you were actually dragged for a while?
That is correct.
Your Honor, reading relevance.
Trying to get to the issue, Your Honor.
Notice.
The objection is overruled. You may answer, or I'll let the answer stand. Officer, could you please remember to pause a little bit and stop talking when there's an objection, okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
The objection was overruled, so you can answer my question.
I was involved in a situation where I was dragged by a car.
And what went through your mind when you were dragged by that car?
Sheer terror, trying to recall my training, what I had been exposed to before that, and simply trying to survive.
That one incident, after you were dragged by that car, I take it you lived, but did you remember the aftermath of that, what happened immediately after you were dragged?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance.
Lydia
It goes to her
decide that.
testimony, Your Honor.
Counsel, we need to sidebar.
Okay.
Okay, the objection is sustained on relevance.
Now let's back up to what you viewed in the body-worn camera and the squad camera. You viewed that after Officer Lucky stopped, my hair is all messed up because of that thing. I'm told that Officer Lucky, he stopped the vehicle. He was the trainee at the time, is that right?
Yes.
And did you notice anything about his procedure in doing that was an error?
Yes.
What was that?
I think when he made the decision to make a custodial arrest, I think at that time when he got Mr. Wright out of the vehicle, what training tells us to do is to move him to the rear of the car, away from the open door, or close the door behind him.
Okay.
That would be something that you would learn later that you would do as a procedural issue as far as a
And an
traffic arrest.
FTO, unless it was some type of an emergency situation, would not interfere at the time he was performing the arrest to correct that. Is that a fair statement?
Objection leading.
I'll let you answer. You may answer.
As a field training officer, I would not have corrected that action until afterwards during a debrief.
After Mr. Wright was asked to come out of the car and he was being handcuffed, he broke away, correct?
Yes, it appeared that way on the video.
Anything about what Officer Lucky did, or Officer Potter did, or in fact what Sergeant Johnson did and the chaos that happened after that, any violation of policy that you saw in that?
I did not.
In your opinion, could a taser be used to stop him from fleeing?
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for a legal conclusion.
The objection is overruled. You may answer.
Could a taser be used in that situation?
A taser could have been used in that situation.
And also, as a result of the Officer Johnson being partway in the car and Officer Lucky standing by the other side of the car and both car doors open, they could have been seriously injured if the car would have went in reverse. Is that right?
Yes,
And that would be a great bodily harm. Is that correct?
correct.
So is it your opinion that not only could a taser be used in this chaotic situation, but also a gun? Is that right?
That is correct.
And that's based on your viewing of the videos, correct?
Yes.
And your experience. How many years are you experienced as a law enforcement officer?
Just about 27 years.
And you know you're under oath.
Yes, I am.
And you're not doing any favors for Miss Potter, are you?
Objection needed.
Well, are you doing any favors for her by saying this?
I am not.
And that's your opinion based on your experience as a law enforcement officer
Yes.
and an ex-chief, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Are you presently employed?
I am.
And what is your job?
I'm a business agent for Law Enforcement Labor Services, or LELS.
And law enforcement labor services negotiates contracts with various police departments?
Yes.
And you negotiate contracts?
I've just started doing that, yes.
Okay, and you have no more connection with being a law enforcement officer, is that right?
Correct.
Thank you, sir, that's all I have.
Dean Cross?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Gannon.
Oh.
Thank you for coming in. Your entire law enforcement career, well, I was going to say was at Brooklyn Center, but you also worked as a military police officer in the Marines, correct?
Correct.
But outside of the Marines, it was entirely with Brooklyn Center, correct?
Yes, sir.
And total of 27 years on that job.
Just about 27 years, yes, sir.
And it's a difficult job, isn't it?
Yes,
Rewarding job,
certainly.
but it's a dangerous job sometimes, correct?
Yes,
And when you're out there, you have to rely on the other officers around you to help keep you safe,
yes,
and you have to rely on other officers rely on you to keep them safe.
correct.
Common to back up other officers on even just traffic stops.
Yes,
And it builds sort of a camaraderie, doesn't it, among officers?
yes, it does.
And
Excuse me, can I get the mask? Oh, your wire's over here. My wire. I didn't mean to interrupt you, you know that. Where's my mask? I lost my mask.
not my data, keep track of it.
I need a new mask.
COVID has affected us in many ways, hasn't it? Sorry about the interruption. And Kim Potter became a part of that camaraderie aspect of your life, your professional life.
Yes,
And did you know her personally at all, in personal context?
yes.
And what kinds of stuff did you do outside of work?
Social gatherings, friends getting together, different anniversaries, things that would come up, but there'd be time to time that we would get together on a personal basis with her family.
So also personal friends.
Yes,
And you actually did work shifts with her?
yes, we did.
And that matter that she did for, well, I call it the honor guard, but I think you had a different term for it, the Lima maybe?
I'm sorry?
Okay, I've been referring to it as the honor guard. Is that the same thing that you were talking about?
Yes, honor guard is, I guess, a subset of Lima. Yeah.
And that's really kind of an important support service for law enforcement families, isn't it?
I'd agree with that.
You really admired her for doing that.
I did.
And when she was working for the DART program, she was no longer really out on the street every day doing patrol, right?
No, that's incorrect.
Okay, tell me.
So the DART team was basically an offshoot of the patrol. So basically you'd still be in patrol operations and be a patrol officer, but you would make time in your shift to go back and do the follow-up with the survivor and make sure that they have the services. So they do both duties.
Got it, thank you. And then on April 11th of this year, when you learned about this incident, you learned about it that night, correct?
Basically early in the afternoon, yes.
Okay. And at some point, did you learn that it was Miss Potter who had fired a gun and caused the death of that young man?
Yes.
Did that surprise you?
Yes, it did.
And at that point that evening, you watched her body cam video, correct?
Yes, I did.
And I was a little unclear. You said at some point you watched the squad camera sometime after that, but I wasn't sure about when after that you also watched the dashboard cam.
Within the last 2 to 3 weeks, I've watched the dash cam. I have not had access to that camera footage other than the initial camera that I saw, which was her body cam, after I resigned.
And so at the time, on April 11th, you only watched that dashboard, or I'm sorry, Officer Potter's body cam.
Correct.
And at the time, when you watched that, you concluded that she did not mean to fire her firearm.
Correct.
And you decided that night to release the video to the public, to show the public that.
Yes, I did.
And it's your understanding that because you refused to fire her, you were not going to be allowed to stay as the chief of police.
I believe there were multiple situations or reasons that I was given. That was one of them. I believe the other reason was my handling of the riots that occurred that night and the next night in front of the police department. Those were things that were pointed out to me that that was in conflict with the elected body.
And you disagreed with those reasons,
Yes, I did.
and particularly with what the shall we say, suggestion to fire her, the request to fire her?
Yes, I would agree with that.
And that's because you thought she should be entitled to some due process, right, before she were to be fired.
We have a policy in place to do administrative investigations, and they entail being thorough, being impartial, and being fair. And I don't think I could have done any one of those three things if I were to make that decision that day.
And so you essentially felt that you were being forced out of the job,
Correct.
and but instead you resigned, right,
Resigned in lieu of termination.
and were allowed then to keep all the benefits, that retirement benefits that come with the job.
Correct.
Now you work for the agency, the Law Enforcement Legal Services, that also provides legal services to officers for on-duty incidents.
Yes, I was unemployed for about 6 months, and I've just recently been employed.
Your agency, well, shouldn't call it that, should I? Where you previously worked at Brooklyn Center, had a policy about officer-involved shooting incidents.
Correct.
And the policy required that the investigation of that kind of incident be referred to an outside agency.
Yes.
And that day even, April 11th, you made the decision to authorize the BCA to do the investigation.
Correct.
And the purpose of that is to avoid any potential bias in the investigation, correct?
That is the intent.
It's also to provide some transparency so that people see that that bias is not going to play, the potential bias is going to play a part in the decision, correct?
Correct.
But today you think you have none of that bias in order to offer the opinions that Mr. Gray asked you to offer.
With the video evidence that I've seen today, or within the last 6 months, I believe I can make that decision. That
You did an interview with the media on November 14th of 2021. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
And that was really about the aspect of how you lost your job there at Brooklyn Center.
It was about the inner workings of working with the political ramifications of decision making. Yes.
And in that interview, you refused to discuss the actual killing of Mr. Wright because you thought you might be a witness in the case.
Correct.
What made you think on November 14th that you might be a witness in the case?
I had the belief that either the prosecution or the defense would call me as a witness in some capacity. I was a police chief.
And had the defense contacted you at that point?
I believe at that point they had contacted me.
So at that point in time when you were contacted by the defense, you had only reviewed Ms. Potter's body-worn camera, correct?
Correct.
And so the only aspect of the case that you had at the time was from Ms. Potter's body-worn camera, correct?
Yes.
And at that time, you did not see any danger for the other officers that would have justified the use of deadly force, as you've said today.
I did see some danger on the driver's side in case the vehicle went in reverse, but I did not see the situation of Michael Johnson on the other side of the car.
So you've been involved in a lot of traffic stops, I assume?
Yes, sir.
Have you had some people flee from you at a traffic stop?
Yes, I have.
Did any of them drive in reverse to the squad car when they fled from you?
No, they have not.
Does it make any sense for somebody to put it in reverse when there are two squad cars behind them to flee?
No.
Prior to that media interview, you had actually had sat down and talked with the defense attorneys on November 8th, correct?
Yes.
And in that interview at that time, you were of the opinion that Sergeant Johnson was leaning into the passenger side of the car when Mr. Wright tried to drive away, correct?
Correct.
So that's something you felt you knew at that time to offer an opinion on, correct?
I need to stand corrected because I have to remember exactly when I saw the video that was reflected on the squad camera. Once I saw the squad camera angle, I believe that Mr. Johnson was hanging inside the car at the time of the incident.
Well, hanging inside the car was not the word you used in the interview with the defense attorneys, is it?
I don't recall.
Would it help to refresh your recollection if I showed it to you?
Yes.
All right. May I approach Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
Yes.
Where's the quote? That's not a quote, that's a report. For the record, Your Honor, that wasn't a quote. It was a report that,
Okay, council member, no speaking objections. Oh, my God.
that's what I apologize.
All right.
This one,
Is there an objection?
maybe you heard on
Yes. injunction is sustained.
At the time of the interview in November 8th of 2021, you believed is simply that Sergeant Johnson, was leaning into the car, correct?
Was in the car, yes, leaning in the car.
All right. And the second time then you met with defense counsel was December 6th of this year, correct?
Correct.
So after the trial had begun.
Yes.
And you were then, from them, shown these other videos, correct?
The two videos,
Yeah, I think earlier you referenced the dash camera from Officer Lecky's squad. And then what else did you review?
the body-worn camera footage from Officer Potter at the time.
Right. But that you watched day one, right?
Yes.
And then, so the only other video you've watched since then has been Officer Lucky's dash camera?
Correct.
Okay. And that is what you did when you met with counsel on December 6th?
Yes.
So it was only upon looking at that that you've arrived at this opinion about deadly force?
Correct.
Have you watched Sergeant Johnson's body cam?
I have not.
Have you interviewed any of the witnesses?
I have not.
Have you ever in your career offered an opinion on whether an officer's conduct was reasonable for a use of force evaluation?
I have reviewed, for IAs as a police chief, I've had to review a lot of internal affairs investigations, and I've had to make determinations based on the evidence that was presented to me.
And in making that determination, what you're determining whether their conduct was consistent with what you said today, right? The policies and practices of the department.
Of the department, yes.
Because an officer could be disciplined by the department.
Correct.
You were not, in those situations, making a legal determination about the reasonable use of force.
I was not.
And your opinion today is solely that Officer Potter's conduct at the time was consistent with policies and practices of your department.
Correct.
Well, I'll make sure I got my numbers right. You became a commander in 2005, correct?
2005.
And a commander position is one that is largely administrative,
Yes, it's a variety of roles, but yes, administrative.
in the office, day hours.
Correct.
And have you carried a taser every day on your job since 2005?
I have not.
You have offered that Mr. Wright should not have been allowed to leave the scene, correct?
Correct.
And that's because there was a warrant for his arrest.
Correct.
And would officers, well, it's true, isn't it, that in making that arrest, officers still have to use reasonable force?
Correct.
You're not saying that anytime somebody tries to get in their vehicle and drive off during an arrest, an officer can shoot them?
That is correct. Not every time somebody gets in their car is an officer have the ability to shoot them. No.
From the dashboard camera, you were still able to determine that Sergeant Johnson's feet were planted on the ground during the incident, correct?
I believe he was still grounded, but a large portion of his body was inside the car.
And that's from the perspective of the dashboard camera.
That is correct.
Did not watch Sergeant Johnson's body-worn camera to get his first-person perspective, did you?
I have not.
Did you, well, so then you also don't know whether Sergeant Johnson was able to prevent Mr. Wright from driving off by holding onto the shift knob.
I am not aware of that.
And you also do not know that Sergeant Johnson was able to prevent, Sergeant Johnson was able to prevent Mr. Wright from driving off by grabbing a hold of his right arm and pulling it towards the passenger door.
I
You
do.
object to that in the statement of testimony.
All right, members of the jury, you rely on your own memory as to what the evidence showed. Okay? You may continue.
Before deploying a taser, officers should consider the surroundings of the person they intend to tase, correct?
Correct.
As the police chief, as a fellow police officer, you would not want an officer shooting their taser in the direction of other officers or civilians.
Correct.
And in the space, well, strike that. So then you would agree, wouldn't you, that Officer Potter's decision to try to use a taser put the passenger of the vehicle and Officer Johnson at risk of being struck by the taser?
I would not agree with that.
Why not?
At that distance that she was within Mr. Wright, the prongs and the distance that they travel apart is very concise and very close. So I think her target that she was looking at doing would have been center mass at the chest and area. I don't think those prongs would have had enough time because they have to travel farther to get the distance apart. So I don't think that was in any way a danger to the passenger or to Michael Johnson because the prongs would have been very close to a tight group.
In watching Officer Potter's body-worn camera, you saw that Mr. Wright was moving around a bit as he was trying to leave.
Correct.
So it was a moving target.
Correct.
Judge, I object to that as argumentative, and also a misstatement of what the body camera showed.
All right. Again, members of the jury, rely on your own memory, okay?
Incidentally, are you certified to carry a taser?
I am certified to carry a taser.
So you go through the training every year as well.
I do.
And you understand the need to get a good probe spread to get a good neuromuscular incapacitation.
If at all possible, yes.
And that the more distance you have, the better off, the more likely you are to get that.
Correct.
You're familiar with the type of taser cartridges that your department started using with the Taser 7 this year?
I'm somewhat familiar with it. I did go through the taser qualification, but I've not handled them since I resigned. It's been quite a while, and we did intro them into the department this year.
Your Honor, I'd like to put Exhibit 246 on the stand, please.
You may.
What number was it?
246?
246.
Do you see that in front of you then?
Yes.
Sometimes I know we get kind of a glare on that screen if you need to move it. Do you recognize what this is?
Yes.
And this is Ms. Potter's certification for the Taser 7 transition, correct?
Yes.
Below the 4 check marks in blue, there are 2 boxes, and one has an X in it, correct?
Yes.
And so this is indicating that, at least for this certification, the close quarters cartridge had not been used?
Correct.
When you saw the video from Ms. Potter's body cam, she was quite upset, correct?
Yes, she was.
Did you feel bad for her at the time?
I did.
Still feel bad for her?
I do.
So the manner in which Officer Lucky brought Mr. Wright out in the car, you thought it would have been better for Officer Lucky to bring him back behind the car, correct?
One thing I hate to do as a police chief is Monday morning quarterback somebody's actions, but I do stand by what I said. It would have been preferable for him to move him back away from that open door frame, but again, I'm looking at it from a perspective many months later.
But not concerning enough for you to believe that an FTO at the time should have corrected that right at the time?
No, from what I watched, it looked as if Mr. Wright was going to cooperate. He initially got out of the vehicle, and sometimes that does put officers off, and they think that there's going to be a compliant individual, and then things change very drastically and quickly. I think it would have been a coaching moment for Kim Potter to have with her probationary after the call.
You testified that a taser could have been used in that situation, and you agreed with that.
Yes.
And that situation is basically what you saw on the dash cam and her body-worn camera.
Correct.
So when you offer the jury this opinion about using your taser was consistent with policy and practice in Brooklyn Center, it's because you believe that Mr. Wright was not in control of his vehicle when he was shot, so it was an acceptable decision to use the taser.
From the video images I saw, he was not in control of his vehicle at the time that she would be deploying the taser, if that's what the tool that she used.
And that's what you said, is that he wasn't, and you didn't see him in control of the vehicle, so it would be okay for her to use the taser.
Yes.
Because if he was in control of the vehicle, it would not have been a good idea to use the taser, correct?
Correct.
Because he could have been incapacitated, and the vehicle could have moved.
Yes.
If he was not in control of the motor vehicle at that time, as you believe, then there also was at that same time no threat of harm to Sergeant Johnson, correct?
Oh, I disagree with that.
Is it consistent with policy and practice for an officer, a police officer, to not know they have their gun in their hand when they shoot somebody?
Could you rephrase the question or repeat it, please?
Sure. Is it consistent, in your opinion, with policy and practice for an officer to not know they have their firearm in their hand when they shoot it?
You are correct.
I'm sorry?
You are correct.
I have nothing further, Aaron. Thank you.
Is there redirect, Mr. Gray?
Police Chief Gannon,
Yes, sir.
would you lie under oath to help a friend out?
Sir, there's a reason why I'm an ex-chief. Nobody gets me to say something or do something that I don't believe in. I wouldn't lie for anyone.
Thank you.
Anything further?
Just briefly, Your Honor. You're offering today your opinions.
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor.
Is there any further redirect? No? Is there any further redirect? Okay. Thank you. You may step down. All right. Okay, the defense may call its next witness.
You call Colleen Frickle.